John Harris stood at his living room window, his weathered hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee. Outside, the quiet suburban street lay before him, still and familiar, stretching under the pale morning sun like a photograph stuck in time. At 50, John had long settled into a life of quiet predictability, one that had slowly turned from comforting routine to lifeless repetition. The clock on the mantel ticked away steadily, a background pulse that seemed to echo louder with each passing day, reminding him of time's steady march forward. He let out a slow sigh, setting the mug down with a soft clink and reaching for his worn gardening gloves. The roses out front at least gave him something to care for. As he stepped into the heat of the day, the summer sun pressed down on his balding head, and he squinted at the glare bouncing off the pavement. He knelt by the rose bushes, pruning shears in hand, losing himself in the rhythm of trimming and tugging until a deep mechanical rumble shook him from his thoughts. Looking up, he saw a moving truck trundle down Maple Drive and stop at the house next door. John straightened, brushing dirt from his knees as he peered over the fence, curiosity flaring in his chest. New neighbors? He muttered aloud. It had been nearly a decade since anyone new had arrived on their street. The movers began unloading furniture, though furniture might have been a generous word. The objects were unlike anything John had ever seen. Tall, fluid shapes that seemed to move slightly even when untouched, and glowing orbs that pulsed with an eerie internal light. Frowning, he watched as one of the movers rolled what looked like a transparent cocoon up the driveway. Then, a figure stepped out of the truck, and John's mouth fell open. She was tall, easily over 6 feet, with limbs that moved like liquid silk, impossibly graceful. Her skin shimmered like sunlight reflected on water, casting a soft golden glow. And her eyes were a deep violet, vast and strange and utterly hypnotic. He ducked behind the fence, heart pounding in disbelief. An alien, not a joke, not a metaphor, an actual alien had moved in next door. "John, you all right over there?" He jumped at the sound of a voice. Mrs. Peterson, his 80-year-old neighbor across the street, stood on her porch squinting at him. "Fine, just fine," he called, voice cracking. "Did you see?" She nodded slowly, wide-eyed. "I saw. Never in all my years." She trailed off, eyes fixed on the glowing figure. Before either of them could speak again, a soft, musical voice drifted over the fence. "Hello, neighbors. I am Tnie. I hope I'm not disturbing anyone with my arrival." John turned and found himself face to face with the alien woman. Up close, she was breathtaking. Her skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, and a soft, sweet scent like blooming jasmine lingered in the air around her. Hi," John stammered. "I'm John. Welcome to the neighborhood." She smiled and her eyes twinkled with warmth. "Thank you, John. I look forward to getting to know you better." There was something in her tone, gentle, melodic, maybe even teasing, that made his cheeks warm. "So, where exactly are you from?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, a little planet called Eliza," she replied lightly. "You probably haven't heard of it. It's rather far." It sounded like she was describing a move from Ohio, not another solar system. Mrs. Peterson had shuffled over by now, gaping openly. "Good Lord," she whispered. "I never thought I'd see the day." Tnie turned to her and beamed. "You must be Margaret Peterson." The elderly woman blinked. Yes, I brought you a pie." She held out a dish as though in a trance. "How thoughtful," Tnie said, reaching out. As she took the dish, her fingers brushed John's arm. A tingling spark shot up his skin and he drew a sharp breath. Her violet eyes locked onto his, and he felt something pass between them, something unspoken, electric, and oddly intimate. "I do hope we'll become good friends, John," she said, her voice a soft purr. He swallowed hard, nodding, utterly at a loss. This was definitely not how he expected his morning to unfold. In the following days, John found his attention drifting constantly back to the house next door. Whether he was sipping coffee, watering plants, or reading the paper, his eyes inevitably found their way to Tnie. He'd catch fleeting glimpses of her, lounging on the porch with a strange, translucent book, tending to bioluminescent flowers in her yard, or simply staring up at the sky, humming to herself in a language he didn't recognize. Occasionally, he would look up and catch her already watching him, those violet eyes holding his gaze, just a second longer than felt casual. Their interactions started small, a wave here, a nod there, and brief greetings when they crossed paths at the mailbox. But as the weeks passed, the encounters became more frequent. She began stopping by while he gardened, asking innocent questions about human plants and soil chemistry. John would answer, fumbling awkwardly at first, but growing more relaxed in her presence. She was curious, endlessly fascinated by everything around her: bugs, birds, books, even the mail system. And yet, she never seemed condescending. She listened with an intensity that made him feel heard in a way he hadn't experienced in years. One late afternoon, while he was watering the begonias, she appeared beside him, silent as a shadow. "Do you ever wonder what lies beyond all this?" she asked, gesturing vaguely toward the sky. "Sometimes," John admitted, "though I've never really thought I'd meet someone who actually knew." "It's vast," she said, "and full of contradictions, beauty and danger, peace and war. I left to find something different, something quiet." She paused. "Something like this." He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded, and they stood in silence, the hose hissing softly between them. Over time, her presence became part of his routine, unexpected, but welcome. The more he saw her, the more he noticed small changes in himself. He whistled while he worked. He cooked more, read more, even signed up for a local astronomy class, just to feel a little closer to understanding her. Then came the night everything shifted. A loud crash woke John just past midnight. He stumbled outside in his robe and slippers and found Tnie in her yard, crouched over a glowing device that sputtered and sparked. She looked up, panicked. "It's nothing," she said quickly, "just a small power fluctuation." "Do you need help?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. For the next hour, he held tools, none of which she recognized, and followed her cryptic instructions as she adjusted wires and recalibrated circuits. Eventually, the light dimmed and the device stabilized. She leaned back, sighing in relief. "Thank you, John," she said softly. "You're very brave." "Brave? I didn't do anything." "You came out here when you heard something strange. You offered help without knowing what it was. That's more than most would do." He shrugged, embarrassed. "Well, you're my neighbor. That's what neighbors do." She smiled, that familiar glow warming the space between them. Then she reached out and gently touched his cheek. "I'm glad I moved here," she said. In that moment, under the strange starlight of her ship's glow, he felt something shift inside him, a long-forgotten piece of his spirit stirred awake. Days turned to weeks. Their bond deepened in unspoken ways. They laughed more, spoke about dreams and memories, human and alien alike. John learned about her planet, its floating cities, crystal forests, and the songs the mountains sang at dusk. In turn, she listened to his stories of childhood summers, his late wife, the way silence had crept in after her death. She never pitied him, she simply listened. One evening, as autumn crept in and the leaves began to brown, she invited him to her home. Inside, the air shimmered faintly, and the furniture, if it could be called that, shifted to match the contours of whoever sat. The walls pulsed softly, alive with color and energy. He was amazed, overwhelmed, yet strangely comfortable. They drank something warm and spicy, not quite tea, not quite wine. "I'm not here forever," she said suddenly. "My people will come for me eventually." John's stomach sank. "When?" "I don't know. A year, maybe 2, maybe less." He looked down at his cup, unsure how to respond. "I'm sorry," she added, her voice tender. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't," he said. "It's just, I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you. Not here, not now." She reached for his hand and held it. "Then let's make whatever time we have count." And they did. Over the coming months, they explored everything together.